Hello and welcome to Top Fives, the show of everything Top Fives. Tonight we will not be doing lists. We will not be talking about pop culture because culture is happening right now on the streets. Um, it's happening in real time. We're watching it unfold on the news, on Twitter, on everything, and it hasn't felt right to do an episode for a couple weeks. Um, it still doesn't really feel right, but we do have we have a platform and we should use it.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about some serious, sensitive topics tonight, and I want to acknowledge that we're a couple of white guys talking about those subjects. But we're just going to get into it. We're going to do our best. So, Jonathan, how are you, my friend?
Doing okay, man. I'm just been just trying to figure out some technical stuff this week, but yeah, it's been we haven't done the show in a couple weeks out of
Mm-hmm.
respect for the Black Lives Matter movement, the protests that are happening. So I'm in Los Angeles, so there's a lot of protesting happening downtown and just in a lot of areas. A lot of peaceful protesting as well. So I thought that was, probably the response that a lot of people were getting, especially after seeing this, the video of George Floyd pretty much being killed on camera, man. And it's definitely obviously it's a time to mourn and think about a lot of these kind of killings that have happened over the years. It's not it's nothing that's new to us, but I think it's a definitely a big and impactful time as far as people really speaking out and being able to say something about what's happening in the world right now, especially even with the pandemic happening as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that are on people's minds right now. So, but other than that, I'm trying to stay positive and check in with educate myself and check in with my roommates and check in with anyone I know. And of course, anyone who I know is protesting, hopefully they're safe and sound and being able to protest safely and but still being able to get their voice out there. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's pretty much it from me. How about you, Joe?
Doing all right, man. Trying to wrap my head around this crazy world and everything that's happening. Started a new job, So I mean, personally, things are on the up and up, but the world is on the down and down, and I can't ignore that, and it bothers me. I don't even know where to begin. So let's begin where it began for the rest of the world with the murder of George Floyd. Right, 8 minutes and 46 seconds. An officer knelt on this guy's neck. He said he couldn't breathe. He cried for his mother. And I can understand. I can't understand, but I can acknowledge that there are hateful people out there that would do something like this. But what I can't let go of is the fact that there were three, four other officers that stood by and did nothing.
Yeah.
Um, I do think we've seen this play out how many times, and it catches traction for a little bit, and then the movement dies down. And if there's one wonderful, beautiful thing about what has happened over the past couple weeks, is that it's not going away.
Yeah, it's not
Change. We're
dying down.
starting to see a little bit of change. Minneapolis, I believe, got rid of their police department. They're going to be trying something new. San Francisco, yesterday or today, London Bridge, the mayor just announced we're not going to have police officers anymore. We're going to have unarmed people to respond to certain situations, right? So change is happening, and we need to keep the pressure going. The motherfucker in the White House doesn't get it. If anything, he's only making the problem worse. And I don't know. It's just been a time of educating myself, but also educating people around me. People who
Yeah.
say all lives matter. You're missing the fucking point. Blue lives matter. Don't even get me fucking started. How can you say ACAB? Because motherfucker, ACAB. There's, I don't know about you, buddy, but for me, I've never considered myself a white because I'm Sicilian, right? But I know that I pass off as a white guy, right? When I think white, I think Aryan, I think blonde hair, blue eyes, and I'm not that. But that doesn't mean the world around me doesn't see me as that.
Yeah.
And I remember talking with one of my best friends, my roommate Brendan, back in the day, and just we'd talk a lot about race and different things like that. And one night I finally just said, the only thing I understand is that I don't understand, and that I'll never understand. And he was like, "Thank you. That's it."
That's it.
So
Just that acknowledgement,
you don't know, I don't know, my parents don't know, and we can't know. All we can do is listen, sign petitions, donate where we can, and if you're feeling up to it, march. It's scary, but fuck, it's the absolute least we can do. I've done all three things now. Signed the petitions. I've donated what I can, and I finally felt that I had to put my money where my mouth was and went to a protest. And it says it'll be peaceful, but how many of the other ones on Twitter were supposed to be peaceful until something happened?
Something happened, yeah.
And then one I was at was peaceful. It was the Mission High protest. It started off in Dolores Park, and when you're at the park, when you first get there, and it's just a bunch of fucking millennials and Gen Zers hanging out, taking pictures with their signs, and then you go down to the street level, and you're in it, and it's powerful. It is one of the most intense experiences of my entire life, and you can see how in an instant things can go from 0 to 100 in a moment. It is a powder keg. It was one of the it felt more sacred than any funeral I've ever been to. It had that same somber tone. And I was drained, and I felt really guilty for feeling drained. You know what I mean? It's not like I was there all day. It's not like I've been doing this day in and day out. I did it one time for a few hours. And the only thing that I felt afterwards was, it's not enough. None of this is enough. No matter how many you go to, or it's never going to be enough. Because while there's been change here and there, it's not enough. We've never done an episode like this. I don't know where to go or what to talk about or what to say, really. But these are some of the recent names, right? So when we were marching, and had people ask me, was it all fuck Trump? Not once, actually. The chant was, say his name, George Floyd. Say his name, George Floyd. Say her name, Breonna Taylor. So in the spirit of that, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, David McAtee, Tony McDade, Robert Fuller, Dominique Fells, Maurice Gordon, Rhea Milton. And this shit just happened in your area, dude. Malcolm Harsh and Robert Fuller were found hanging from trees. And Rayshard Brooks was just murdered by Atlanta police. So no matter how much visibility there is, it doesn't matter if cameras are on the cops, they don't give a fuck. And they're going to do it anyway. And this thing isn't slowing down. And it shouldn't.
It shouldn't, yeah.
It can't. Like, you know, I see, and this is no jab at other shows, you know, you guys got to do what you got to do, but just seeing people just after 1 week of Podcast Black, all right, we're going to go back to talking about movies and fucking jerking each other off. Like, I can't do it. My heart's not in it right now. Everything's shut down anyway. What the fuck is there to talk about? There's nothing to talk about other than this. This is the only thing that matters right now. So, I'm going to end my soapbox in a moment here and let you take the floor. I'll just say that there's some really good causes that you can donate to. Know Your Rights Camp, Colin Kaepernick is getting money to bail out protesters. Reclaim the Block, giving money to black-owned businesses. The NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and of course the ACLU. But you can find more at blacklivesmatters.carrd.co. blacklivesmatters.carrd.co. They have petitions. They have places where you can donate. And, you know, all the information that you need. So please go check that out and please give what you can, even if it's, and you don't have to post it. That's the other thing, guys. Who is that for? When you're on social media going, look, I just donated $150. Who the fuck is that for other than yourself? Sorry, but it's a little, it pisses me off a little bit. You're doing it for the wrong reasons. If you got to blast it all over social like that. So, obviously, I've been feeling a little strongly about this. Jonathan, I'm going to let you take the floor because I've kind of been on a soapbox for a minute here, and it's not my. That's the thing, right? This is not a time for our voice. It's time for our ears, time for us to listen. But having said that, I have to acknowledge that we have nearly 2,500 followers on Twitter, and if any of this information can get through to one person, then it's worth it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and just I know we went dark for, you know, about like the 2 weeks or whatnot. You know, I think we felt that it was appropriate, obviously, to give a voice and a place for the Black Lives Matter movement, and, you know, of course, people educating and getting that information out there. And you know, that's what we hope, I guess, using this podcast too and this outlet, is to be able to, one, get that information out there. Obviously share how we're feeling about it, and our experiences of what's been happening the last few weeks. Yeah, it's, man, you know, there's days where I feel very, you know, obviously very grateful for, you know, especially for both of us growing up in, you know, like San Francisco, and, you know, going to school in such a diverse place. And, you know, I know racism and those things, you know, we're not, you know, they're not, of course they're around, they're always going to be around. And even in a place like San Francisco or California, but, you know, I still feel a lot of gratitude being able to, one, have a family and parents who are both immigrants and coming over here and you know, instilling and teaching me, you know, about, you know, equality and diversity. And that's, you know, that's something that I could take away as far as, you know, I guess my personal respect for anyone, you know, and how I see people. And that's a thing. It's like when you realize, like, oh yeah, there's other people in different parts of the country and all around the world that, you know, are being raised and grow up in this, you know, this pool of racism and this kind of feeling of, you know, you're more superior than this person, you know, whoever it is. And that is obviously something that needs to be attacked. And I know it's going to take, it takes years, it takes generations, obviously, of family and how you're raised and whatnot. And I do feel that is a big part of it too, is how we're educating, when we have kids, of our own, and when we start our own families, that's on us to teach that, to educate that to our kids, that, it's not based off of your color, or where even from, it's really just treating everyone equally, and making your decision on how you're obviously interacting with that person, and how you feel about them. So that's something, as far as I know, we're both, I'm a mixed kid, but of course I could probably be identified as white too, but that's my takeaway as far as what I can do with my, when, as moving forward with the future, and how I can continue to educate, and it also involves when I start a family of my own, and how I can instill those ideals into my kids in the future. But I mean, it's going to take some time, and I think it's definitely going to be, again, we want to keep, we want to keep it going, man. And even with time, I think there's going to be a lot of different things that are going to change internally, and that's what we hope for. Electing new leaders, or specific leaders, changing the way, especially with the police, obviously, how it's, how the money is allocated for those specific things for the police. It's a lot of different things in order for it to, to work, and it's, I think that's one thing when I was talking to my dad about it, it's going to take some time, but it has to be time, but also action, and a lot of people, moving forward, and really, trying to get these things, happening. So, but I don't know, man, it's just like, we live in an age where, we could see this, people post all this stuff about, seeing police brutality, and I literally watched a video of just like all these protests, peaceful protests, and just like gas, being shot at these people, and rubber bullets
hit with batons, and
literally aimed at the person.
Mm-hmm.
And it's terrible, and
this isn't America. America is over, as far as I'm concerned, right? You need to fucking
honestly,
rebrand it.
I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen on July 4th. I mean,
it's a day of fucking mourning, as far as I'm concerned. This is no time to celebrate.
And it's not, I know with the internet and the digital age, this stuff is we're able to see this stuff happen, because people can film it, and they can, share it on the internet. And, there's a lot of information, a lot of things that people can experience just by watching a video. And, I think it's, obviously it's terrible that we get to see a person die, like literally in this video, with George Floyd, and even numerous other, accounts or whatever. But, it's, that's unfortunate, as far as, I'm trying to remember that, who said it, but, racism, it's always been around, but it's just being filmed now. It's being, it's able
Big
to
time.
be, shared with the world. And, I don't know if that, to some degree, I guess it could be as part of the, educating others and showing others, exposing others to that, because maybe some people live maybe, in a place that's not as apparent, or, obviously we're not, African American, and, just being able to, show that, like, this is happening in local neighborhoods, this is happening in your own town, and to people of color, it's terrible. And, I think I mentioned to you, probably off air, Joey, I started watching Dear White People, and we've talked about that show, multiple times on the podcast. And
Great show.
I sat down and watched, the first season, and even just the topics that they're hitting in that show of, African American men and women, going through this feeling of, when people go outside, and no matter what your status is or how famous you are, or or you're just the average Joe, it's unfortunate because society and people like police, or some police, they don't have the same view and kind of equal treatment to those to those types of people. And it's terrible to see that happen, and especially now in front of our eyes with these videos. And it's just, for me, it's just, it just doesn't, it doesn't make sense. But at the same time, like, I see why it's like this,
Yeah.
like, and how our country was built, and
it's systemic. It goes back to the Declaration of Independence. It goes back to Reconstruction after the Civil War. There are, I'm half joking when I call for revolution, but I'm not at all. Like, I think we need to start over. America, when I think of America and all the bullshit laws that we've created specifically to hold minorities back, it's just this giant knot, right? And okay, great, we get one changed, but while we were getting this one changed, a whole other knot formed over here, and now we're gonna have to undo all those. But that's gonna take decades to get one of those strands loose, and in that time, how many more knots are gonna form within this giant cluster, right?
Yeah,
blow it all to fucking hell. And I'm not saying blow America off the map. I'm saying let's re-strategize. Let's have a peaceful revolution if possible. I don't think it's possible. But we are seeing, as far as I'm concerned, the death of America. When the day that Trump got out after hiding in his little underground lair with the lights off at the White House, and then to come out of the Rose Garden and talk about, first of all, he was tweeting about how Biden's gonna lose the next morning. It was like, this is what you're tweeting about? People are getting killed in the streets by police, and this is what you're tweeting about the election? And then to come out at the Rose Garden and just say, yeah, I'm going to be sending troops into these cities. Like, this is martial law, dude.
Yeah.
It's
like, not once
has a
has
police state. People used to, I used to kind of laugh when people would compare him to Hitler, and it's like, come on, it's Trump. But that's kind of, it's more Mussolini, but it's still in the same realm. He wants to be a dick. He doesn't want to ask for permission. When has he ever asked for permission? Not when he's talking to a woman. That's for fucking sure.
I think the biggest, especially for, I guess, I hate to get, I know we never really cross this line too much on the show, but
we try not to, but fuck it.
Fuck it.
This is what tonight's episode is. And if you disagree with that, that's fine. You're more than welcome to it. That's what makes this country great. But our show has always kind of been, we've always seen it as a kind of a living document for our times, I think. And this is how we're feeling. So please go off.
Well, I think going off of especially Trump's reaction, and I think my dad even mentioned this too, but, especially during times like this, and Trump has always done this, is he always breaks apart things and never unites people. And what, obviously what, as a president's role, especially for America in this time of a pandemic, police brutality, killings, it should be about uniting people. And he's never done that, he's always been very self-centered, and I don't know what the fuck is going on in his head with
there's zero
Twitter
humility
stuff. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's that just totally obviously shows through his thoughts on certain things. And it's so strange to it's like, this is the America that we're living in. This is the time we're living in. And with the pandemic happening, there's a lot of healthcare issues coming up. There's how our economy is being run, and how that is affected, and pretty much the response of especially let's just say this pandemic goes away, and and then there's another thing that happens. What's going to be the government's response, and of course the president's response to all these people who are unemployed and who are dying every day. you know, obviously where all this money's being allocated, you know, towards mostly police and all this other stuff. You know, it's just like, you know, America definitely needs, you know, we need a different direction. We need to change it. And those, you know, obviously internally, all those different things. You know, this, you know, healthcare especially, dude. You know, like it's unbelievable. I read this article about this like 7-year-old gentleman who got like coronavirus, and his bill was like $1 million.
Yeah.
Like, it's like
Yeah.
there's no fucking way any of us can afford that stuff, dude. You know, and you would
But
think
that's
too,
the thing.
especially
Some people can, and so that's
and
why
some
they
people can.
charge you.
That's why they do it,
Right.
man. Um, so you know, there's a lot of systematic issues that have always been happening. You know, it's not, you know, even within our 31 years of living. You know, it's even asking my dad when he, you know, when he got here. You know, he's, you know, he saw some, you know, things that, or you know, witnessed things in in the last few, you know, decades, that, you know, are touch on, you know, of course, police brutality and race, and there's a lot of change that needs to happen. And you know, I think that's my best hope, and only, you know, hope for this is, you know, we continue to, you know, everyone can continue to push on and to educate and to get involved and be active. And you know, of course, that's again our role too, as you know, this generation as well, and of course our, you know, previous generations, the younger generations too, as well. So, and you know, as far as the response, and being able to see the protests happening, and seeing, you know, protests happening in London and in Germany, and all these people.
Amsterdam and did you see the one in Paris? 100,000 people. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Nearly brought me to tears. Because
And
you know,
that's
we were right
and that's,
there.
and that's what, you know, that's what this world needs, is people to come together and recognize, and obviously, you know, yeah, recognize these problems. And that's the part that has always bothered me, is, you know, again, kind of going back, like, it's been, you know, it's, I'm not saying it, you know, of course people die every day, but you know, and then of course, you know, African American people die at a high rate, you know, every day. And then unfortunately, it's, you know, with the numbers, it's, you know, it's been, you know, police killings and all sorts of, you know, other, you know, situations. And you know, it's a terrible thing to think upon. But also just seeing those protests, and seeing the response, and you know, everyone really, you know, standing together. You know, I think that's been the part that, you know, of course, is that sense of hope, and you know, that hope for change that will happen and will continue to happen. And that's a part that, you know, for me, it's like over the years, it's been tough to really, you know, to see the change. But you know, I think it's also something that has to happen, you know, over you know, years. And again, it's our role to continue to you know, educate, and you know, kind of you know, get people to be a part of that movement. So
Yeah.
yeah, man.
Yeah, man. I don't know. There's a moment. Sorry, my dog keeps walking. Go back to bed. Go back to bed. You're distracting the fuck out of me. Can you hear his nails on the floor? Fine.
A little bit. It's all good.
Yeah. There's a moment at the protest with our good friend from the show, Andrew Hopkins, and the lady I've been seeing, Alicia. Everyone took a knee. Okay, take a knee. Cool. And then everyone had their hands up. And the chant was, hands up, don't shoot. Hands up, don't shoot. Hands up, don't shoot. And it was maybe the most eye-opening experience of my life, in terms of, again, I'll never understand. I will never understand. But never have you even... It's so easy to just be like, oh yeah, you know, I understand that there's bad blood between cops and African Americans and blah, 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 blah. But when you're in that kind of moment where you're very aware that even though this is a peaceful protest, it could go violent at any second. again, I'm not going to say it put me in the shoes of, you know, but it's the it was the closest my brain went. Oh, every single time, not just when somebody gets pulled over, just when they see a cop or a cop sees them. You know what I'm saying? There's a video on Twitter yesterday or the day before. You know, a black girl, probably 8 or 9, at a park, and a white female cop comes up, but like vested out. You know what I mean? Like full on flak jacket, and and this poor little girl starts crying and putting her hands up. And this cop is just like, "Hey, no, I just came over to say that we're not all bad." And blah, blah, blah. It's like, what the fuck is the matter with you? What the fuck is the matter with you? People are like, "Oh no, that was great. That was really sweet." Was it? Um, I mean, I get it. I get the sentiment. Maybe not right now. I don't know. Like, and look, you gotta understand the history of police in this country. You know, I remember my nan telling me how her uncles could only get jobs as firefighters or police because they were immigrants. And, Irish need not apply. This is back when Italians couldn't get work. They could only get jobs where their life was on the line. So, if you think about that, these institutions have been mostly populated by immigrants and things like that, people who couldn't get any better work. Of course, it's built on corruption. Of course, those the people working in that environment are going to watch each other's backs and have their families' backs and take from people who aren't that. You know what I'm saying? This shit is ingrained. And yeah, I'm sure there are cops who have joined for the right reasons, and there's good people who put on the uniform. But if you see it, if you see the corruption, if you see the bribery, if you see the violence, and you don't do anything or say anything, I'm sorry. ACAB, motherfucker. I don't. I don't know how to end this show. I don't know what else to say. I pray to God that we are on the cusp of revolution, and if not revolution, some type of significant change. Because a little bit here and a little bit there isn't gonna fucking cut it. Police officer just gunned down Rayshard Brooks in Atlanta just the other day. Shit isn't going away. It's not getting better. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Imaginary audience, if anyone is tuning in and gives a shit what we have to say on the subject, you shouldn't. You shouldn't give a shit about what we have to say on the subject because it doesn't matter. We're going to continue to try to spotlight other voices that have something significant to say. We're going to keep giving you links where you can sign change.org petitions, you can donate, you can get educated and help learn language to educate your family or your friends or whoever fucking needs it. Any closing remarks, my friend?
Yeah, I think yeah, as a podcast with 25,000 followers or whatnot,
500.
you know,
Let's not
20,
inflate that shit.
2,500.
There we go.
Yeah, I think it's, we felt it was yeah, we felt we had at least some role to play as far as just being able to, one, have an outlet for people to reach out to these organizations. And it's obviously this is something we've never, I know we've talked about other things that have happened in kind of past history, but I mean, this is such a different show. But I at least hope that just a little bit of what, our kind of just our thoughts on it and just how we're kind of feeling. um I just hope that, like, people could just think about, the change that's going to be happening. And again, I guess our role is to keep, getting people to, to see this information and, to be actively, connected to the cause or donating or whatever way you can.
Yeah.
But as far as as far as ending the show, we're gonna have to kind of figure out what we're gonna be doing in the next few weeks. But we're gonna try our best to keep again spotlighting what's been happening, and even had a thought maybe reaching out to some other podcasts maybe, and see if we can have kind of a similar reach with them. So
I will suggest something a little more in spirit with what we normally do. Netflix just released the latest Dave Chappelle stand-up. It's not on Netflix, it's on YouTube, and it's called 846, How Long the Officer Knelt on George Floyd's Neck For. And it is powerful. The only way Dave Chappelle stand-up can be powerful. It's only like a half hour long, and I really highly encourage everyone to watch it and really just try and meditate on what he says and what's going on. So love you all, and I hope there's change on the way. Until next time, I'm Joey Perotti.
And I'm Sean Day.